Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a session with Isaac Vetter presenting about international patient access. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Isaac Vetter. I work on tools and standards to help developers build apps on top of Epic. I'm here to talk about international patient access. Thanks, Lynn. And this slide deck is available online, bit.ly/DevDays IPA. If you want to follow along, there are a few links. Also, we should have time for questions, so queue them up, ask them in the Q&A in Whova, or kind of just jot them down on paper if you're in the room. There's not too many people here that we can't have an actual conversation and discussion. So I wanted to start just with a kind of brief introduction of the International Patient Access Project. As we see countries and regions across the world look to better enable their citizens to access their health data through APIs, of course, FHIR is kind of one of the default options that's considered. And so starting with FHIR, starting with the base spec, there's a lot of work that needs to be done by a national, health IT architects and by regulators in order to kind of create their own profiles and their own specifications from scratch. Further, as we see different countries, different regions do that work and create national, nation-specific or locale-specific FHIR specifications to enable greater patient access to health data, often those specifications conflict with one another, as will tend to happen. So IPA, the International Patient Access Project, and it is working to define a really minimal base set of FHIR profiles that describe kind of the clinical data that can be provided to a patient when they access their health data using an app. So we're starting with kind of a recommendation to use Smart on FHIR as the de facto authentication and authorization mechanism for accessing health data, as well as a very minimal set of kind of core base profiles that include things like which elements must be supported by a given FHIR server within different countries, or which elements should be supported, and then also we're also providing guidance to app developers who are writing apps who of course want their apps to function and to be available and usable within different countries. And so we're providing guidance to those app developers to say, you really need to pay attention to the patient.active field or the observation.status element. And by providing kind of internationalized guidance to app developers, we're hoping to make it easier and more likely that FHIR servers, even regulated FHIR servers, will be functional in different countries for the same app. Of course, there are very legitimate and real differences between countries, especially given our scope of the entire world. And we're not trying to solve all those problems because we're not going to. And we see a lot of that in reflection of, for example, terminology is just something that the IPA project in general isn't trying to tackle. I want to point out that there's actually been a lot of attention kind of paid to this topic over this week. So starting with Graham, who Tuesday actually kind of dove into what is an implementation guide. I think as Graham has tended to start really thoughtfully, critically, and analytically, and think about things at the base. So from there, we also saw Brett Marquard this morning talk about the Argonaut project's upcoming work on the International Patient Access Project. And then yesterday, my colleague Mikhail from Finland really kind of dove into what IPA is, what are our current goals and priorities, what are the things that we're working on, timeline, trying to get published this autumn, and I'd highly recommend that you check that out. And then lastly, Tomorrow, we've got John and Matt are talking about international patient summary, which is a highly related project and a very similar acronym. And so I'm actually going to spend this time that I have with you right now actually disambiguating between these two different projects. So again, highly encourage you, go watch Mikhail's recording. I actually rewatched it last night. It's really good. There's some great questions. Go and check out some of these other recordings in Whova that are related to this topic, because there's a number of them. And then lastly, I do want to express that I feel a real sense of urgency within this project. So here's just a quick map of some, I'm certain I missed some of the national base fire specifications, or the countries in which national base fire specifications are being defined or created or matured. There's a wide range of maturity here, but these are the countries who are leading in the fire space. As these countries mature and more and apps and infrastructure and work is put into these national base fire profiles, they're going to get hardened. They're going to be it's going to become more and more difficult to change them, to synchronize them across national borders. And so I think that's why this project and the International Patient Summary Project are really important, that we do this now, if not 2 years ago. Okay, so this is actually a table created by my colleague John, who's in the front row, and 100% stolen. And so I wanted to kind of disambiguate between International Patient Summary and International Patient Access. So 2 columns here in this table. As we talked about, IPA is kind of a baseline for client applications. It describes RESTful access, so we actually prescribe RESTful access in IPA to patient data. It's used kind of more within a border, within a country, is where we hope to see deployments of IPA. Patient summary is used across borders. It's used as a way for a snapshot of a patient's health data to be kind of transmitted or carried. I'm nodding, double check with John. Yes, got it right. Okay. IPA is really defined to be kind of a minimal that is applicable within different locales, within different regions, within different countries. Whereas IPS's profiles are pretty complete, and they use composition to kind of describe a FHIR document. Again, another great example there is terminology. IPA is extremely minimal in terms of terminology, whereas IPS is doing the very hard work of finding or creating and influencing a truly international terminology. And maybe a point in the future is that the IPA will be able to build on top of the shoulders of giants in that IPS space. API interactions, again, IPA is all about kind of patient access through REST, through APIs, through standardized search parameters, through standardized FHIR resources, using apps, using OAuth. And again, we recommend Smart on FHIR. Whereas in IPS, there's minimal or none, but very minimal, I would say, API guidance. We do have the dollar summary operation defined in the current kind of continuous integration server. Yeah, thanks, Rob. And then human readable narrative text, optional with an IPA, required for composition. Okay. Here is, again, another kind of beautiful illustration. Note the footnote. So, and how we see IPA and IPS kind of working together and building on top of one another. Again, IPA is these super minimal base profiles. And so we see IPS as kind of building on top of those to really kind of accomplish that specific valuable use case of cross-border record exchange. Whereas, IPA, that consumer device, FHIR REST, APIs, limited terminology in that kind of that core spec, which is likely built on top of, or perhaps built on top of, by kind of region-specific profiles and specifications. All right. If you happen to be in the kind of international pub talk yesterday evening, local time, Brett Marquard from the Argonaut Project actually kind of proposed this set of questions, and we never really got through it. So I thought that I would reuse this content, and again, in kind of a fun, lighthearted way, in order to kind of walk through as an exercise. This is a quiz. Okay, so you guys who are on Whova, please throw into the chat. Question number 1, is international patient access or international patient summary the best kind of tool, the best tool to use to share a downloaded care summary with a new provider? Okay, so let's see, how do we do this? If you think it is access, for you in the room, raise your hand. You on the chat, type access, I think. If you think it's summary, you in the room, raise your hand. Okay, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. Bryn's got 2 hands, excellent. Okay, so everybody who guessed summary, that is 100% correct.
We only had the 1 vote for access.
Oh, man. Yeah, Bryn. And there is minimal API guidance specified in IPS currently with the dollar summary operation. However, everyone who did guess access, like later, there's a prize. And so just kind of stick around sometime this evening, and there's and you'll figure out what you're getting. Okay, so question number 2. So I'm an app developer. I want to develop a consumer app that'll work in multiple countries. Okay, if you think that's access, type it into the chat in Whova or raise your hand. Who's thinking access here? Yeah, okay, we got Rob, we got a lot more people. All right, who is thinking summary? Okay, we got Bryn being the pushing on the boundaries of these things. Lynn?
We have 1 vote for access.
Okay, excellent work there. The answer, I think the answer is access. Again, number 3, provide a link or QR code to a pre-generated care summary. There is this thing called Smart Health Links. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but maybe this that I think we're talking about sometime this week, pretty soon. Okay, so who thinks a pre-generated care summary via some method of access, like a link or QR code, is actually IPA, is access? Raise your hand if you think so. Nobody in the room. How's Lynn? Nobody online yet?
They've been voting in chat, and I've been monitoring in Q&A.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's good. Lots of participation.
So yes, for our online attendees, please make your responses in Q&A, please.
Okay, so and then who thinks that is summary? Again, pre-generated care summary. Man, it even has the word summary in it. That was well, that's good. The summary is a real word. That'll happen in real life too. Okay, excellent. Great job, folks. Number 4, I want to translate a care summary from one language source to another. Who thinks that's access? Nobody in the room. Who thinks that's summary? Okay, great job. Q&A?
Access.
Man. Jude, do they want to expound a little?
Which one?
On why that's access? And if you guys think that you are right, and yet the majority of other people voting disagree with you, would you be so kind as to type up kind of your rationale or thoughts, just kind of quickly allude to it? I think in either the chat or Q&A. I think, and then I'll go back and read through this and respond individually. And because there are really nuances here, we're glossing over stuff, as our our guy in the room kind of pointing out the edges is Bryn here in the back. And no doubt you're right. Like, there are edge cases, and what do these words really mean? And we're trying to just kind of come to a consensus in terms of what these words mean. Number 5, support a FHIR server that will work with data from multiple countries, all using FHIR. Access? That's what I think too. Summary? Okay. Number 6, have a mobile device query for specific medical information. That seems straightforward. RESTful API, right? That's what search parameters. That's a, okay, access, right? Yeah. Anybody for summary? We've just got that dollar summary operation. It probably doesn't return specific stuff. Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, number 7, have a mobile device query for all medical information. I think this is kind of a tricky one. Who thinks access? I mean, it's query, right? Yeah, how do you define all, suggested Ricky Bloomfield from the audience. I think that the US is working on that. And then, or who thinks summary? I mean, kind of summary, what is all, right?
Well, we said that summary is definitely not all. So
yeah. So, yeah, Rob Hossam says summary is not all. So maybe neither? Okay. And with that kind of ambiguous last question, I'm going to say great work. For those of you who got an answer right, come down to lunch. There is a dessert that you get as a prize. And excellent work. All right, next. So what's next? So if you're interested in this stuff and you weren't able to catch some of those recordings, then there's a bunch of great content from this week. Highly recommend. But I want to get more involved. I don't, I can watch these videos, but so what else can I do? If you happen to be in HIMSS Europe next week, the day after, Friday in Helsinki, there's an IPA kind of convened by my colleague Mikhail, who's recording. I'm encouraging you to watch, and where really formed around the Nordic countries and Netherlands. They're going to be talking about the kind of possible creation of a base national, multinational FHIR specification that is perhaps built on top, that is hopefully built on top of IPA. And so if you're European, if you're going to be in Europe next week, specifically Helsinki, highly recommend that. Registration forms linked here, or reach out. How to get involved otherwise. So we run about a almost weekly call, kind of right after the IPS call. And so we have on Wednesday mornings US Central Time, so relatively accessible to European time zones. Those are just regular HL7 working group calls. You can find them in the HL7 conference calls web calendar on the web. And if not, reach out. Our plan is to publish this autumn. We're getting some help from the esteemed and successful Argonaut project group and accelerator. And what questions do you have?
While I'm waiting to see hands, we did have a question come in through Huva. Are we not getting input from IPA from countries in South America, Africa, and Asia?
I think that we would like more input in general. What we have done is started with the FHIR national base specifications, or FHIR kind of patient access type specifications that we've been able to find across the globe. And so that map that I showed is actually a relatively accurate depiction of the national base specifications that we have just been able to find by talking to people, by Googling, and that we've gone through and to a large extent analyzed in order to determine what elements are supported in which national spec versus the other, and therefore to give feedback into what we should be defining as a potential base set of profiles, base set of common data elements that are across all of those different countries and regions. If you please reach out. We would love to to broaden our base content that we can research and draw from. And if we're missing something, and I'm sure that it's very likely that we are, please reach out and on Zulip, hashtag IPA stream, or directly to me. Other questions?
Hi, I randomly came across a company called Air Doctor. Apparently, it allows people who travel, when they're traveling, you can book an appointment for specialties. And I just did example like Berlin dentist, and I got a couple of results.
Yeah.
Would availability, like information, potentially fall under access as something that is general?
Man, that's a really insightful and great question. So an international, like even, we talked a little bit about medical tourism in the pub talk last night, and then I think scheduling is a direct access scheduling is a really, really hard problem that definitely hasn't been solved in the U.S. I don't know about other countries. I think that would be a fabulous phase 3. That's how, they're really, patient access? Yes, that is patient access. Yeah. Hey, Rob.
I was going to add, I think that the scenario.
And we've got a mic coming to you, too.
Yeah, just going to add that I think that scenario would lend itself quite well to, if you had IPS available, then that would be the way,
Yes.
a way
Yes,
to
thank you.
get that information, passed to the other, care settings. So.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions? I think that we are coming close to time.
I just want to say, obviously great work, Isaac. And
Oh,
this
thanks, John. You too.
I think you did a great job at really profiling that cross-border aspect of things for
Yeah.
IPS. And you think about the medical tourism where you're traveling overseas and you have a visit and you need to get something. Having that structured terminology is going to be critical to things like language translation, to think about how do we take your problems or your medications from one place to another place for it. But in IPA, I almost think that like universal is a great word for it, right? Which is, it's something that you can expect that FHIR servers are going to be able to do universally. Happens to be internationally, but often you're using that within borders. So I just want to do that, and a call out to GDHP and the presentation Matt's doing tomorrow.
Yes.
The Global Digital Health Partnership does have 33 nations that are involved with advancing the IPS, but also really involved with the IPA as well for it, and trying to get as much catchment as possible, not just Europe and Australia and the US, for inputs into that, trying to get as much as we can from Asia, Africa, other forums for it. So if you're interested in GDHP, it's Global Digital Health Partnership, gdhp.health. Bring up a great website for accessing a little bit more about that.
Thank you, John. Okay, and Lynn, we're at time. And thank you, Lynn, not only Director of Publishing, but also mic runner and Zoom moderator. So have a great rest of your Dev Days, and I'll see everybody soon.
Thank you, Isaac. We appreciate your participation, and also our virtual and in-person attendees. Recordings should be available within the next week. Hopefully by tomorrow, but you just never know.